Norman Mailer, The Armies of the Night. I have two signed books by... Or do I have one signed book by him? I think I have just one. Okay, I have one. Hi everyone, I'm Sean, and today I'm going to be doing another Book Unhaul video, as well as kind of reviewing some books that I've read. So here we go. We begin the unhaul with Norman Mailer, The Armies of the Night. So I have a signed book by Mailer, Tough Guys Don't Dance. So I kind of kept this one around after reading it, just thinking, well, maybe I'll want to collect his books since I have one of his autographed. But thinking about it, I just don't really want it. I don't need it. I'm not going to reread it or anything. The other book I have by him up there somewhere is The Naked and the Dead. But I don't think he's an author where I want to keep every book he's written. So I just don't need it. So I'm getting rid of it. So that is the first book to go. Norman Mailer, The Armies of the Night. And to spare you from having to look up my review, basically my thoughts on it were that it was just okay. The book is about a Vietnam protest outside of the Pentagon. I'm really mixed on it. I cannot tell if I like or dislike Mailer's writing, or if I think he's a good or a poor writer. I need to read another of his books to really get a better idea. So I think I gave this one 3 stars, kind of for effort, for appreciating kind of the historiography of it, if that's a word. And also just liking that I have a signed book by him. So I gave it 3 stars, I think. It's basically like, well, I guess I'm glad he wrote it. I'm glad I read it. But it's not a book I really care about to keep, so it's gone. While I'm on the topic of Norman Mailer, the next book is Tropic of Cancer by Henry Miller. Now, in a video I've seen on YouTube where Norman Mailer is debating Gore Vidal, just type in Mailer Vidal debate. It's real entertaining. Norman Mailer said that Henry Miller was the greatest writer alive in America. And I'd never heard of him before, and I've never read him before, so that definitely caught my interest when he said that. And Black Spring here, the second book, is on the 1,000 Books to Read Before You Die list by, what's his name, James Mustich. So I need to read Black Spring anyway, and this is a collection of books. So I decided to start with Tropic of Cancer since I think it is the first book he wrote. So when I started Tropic of Cancer and found out how vulgar it is, basically, just I wish I could read it, but I probably can't. I'm not sure I'd even want to, but I just could not read it. It was just way too explicit, and I did not like it at all. So reading just a few pages of that book, Tropic of Cancer, made me want to give up on all of Henry Miller's books. Basically, I was ready to throw this book in the trash because it was just like, no, I can't read that. So I think part of the problem with Henry Miller, to me, I kind of have a theory that a large reason writers like him were popular were just because they were so vulgar, they were so against the norms of the age. So when they wrote these books, the people were all like, oh, I can't believe you wrote that. And that is really what made them popular or famous or whatever. Not necessarily that they were good or anything, just that they were pushing the envelope. And Henry Miller did receive a lot of backlash against his writing. Like in the United States, I think his books were banned for decades, really, before they could even go on sale. And I do think that is BS. I am totally against censorship. But still, that doesn't mean I have to like the book. And so reading this book, Tropic of Cancer, I was just like, nope. So I was going to give up on Henry Miller entirely just because of the first few pages of that book, Tropic of Cancer. But kind of what I've decided is Black Spring is a top 1000 book, and I did flip through it real quick just to see, like looking for keywords to see if it was as vulgar as Tropic of Cancer. And from my little glimpse through, I didn't see anything that really showed it was that bad. So I think I'm still going to give Black Spring a chance. But whereas before I kind of wanted to read every Henry Miller book to see what made him so good that Norman Mailer would consider him the greatest writer in America, after reading part of that book, I might just read or try to read Black Spring. And if I don't like it, it'll probably have a real short leash for me. So if I'm not liking it, I'll probably just be done with it and be done with Henry Miller. Next on the Unhaul is, I don't know how to pronounce his name. As usual, it's either Herman Hesse or Herman Hesse, or maybe something even completely different. I like to say Herman Hesse, though. I mean, if you're going to have the extra E at the end, I'm going to pronounce it. So, Steppenwolf by Herman Hesse. Like a lot of books, I went into this one blind, not knowing anything about it. I heard that name before, though, Steppenwolf. And reading the first chapter, I thought it was a little bit dry, wordy / intellectual-ish. But I thought it still had some potential, the first chapter. Or maybe it's not even the first chapter. Maybe it's sort of like the prologue. It's setting up the character Steppenwolf. And I liked that reasonably well, not too much. But as soon as it got into the main book with Steppenwolf, I just quickly lost interest in the book. And it's hard for me to really explain what I don't like about it, but I read some reviews, like 1-star reviews from people who read this book, and my thoughts were basically the same as theirs. Basically, we just did not like the Steppenwolf character. He seemed real kind of into himself, like calling himself the Steppenwolf. Like this guy thinks he's a wolf, or he thinks he has this high opinion of himself. And the book is written kind of like he's an intellectual, but I didn't see anything really intellectual about it. I just saw that this guy thought he was better than everyone for some reason, and I don't know. So the whole book, it was just, I didn't get very far into it, but I just knew, like, this is not really living up to the potential I thought it could have. So I basically chose to DNF it, and I do not know if I rated this book or not. A lot of times if I just do not like a book, I'll just leave it unrated. So I forget what I did with this one on Goodreads, but I would just say I assume I left it unrated and just not for me. So this one I actually think my dad lent it to me, so giving this one back to my dad. And Hesse, or Hess, is on the top 1000 list for the Glass Bead game. So I'm still going to give that one a try. I was kind of hoping reading this one would make me appreciate the author a little bit more. But, yeah, it didn't work out. So this is just a did not finish and is going back to my dad. Okay, this is one I recently added to my currently reading list, but it was The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. One of my problems with the book, honestly, is that the first chapter was 90 pages long, I think, and there were no section breaks, I think, so it was just a huge 90-page chapter. And I think that's really exhausting because you should give readers some natural breaks, somewhere where they could stop and take a breather and just But a 90-page chapter to start the story is just like so that was kind of a problem for me. But when I got about halfway through it and the book was just not working out for me, I looked up on Wikipedia to see basically what the book was about, what the legacy of the book was about. And on Wikipedia it said basically chapter 2 or part 2 or whatever is where Faulkner's writing really comes where he hits his stride. So I hung around till then, till chapter 2, which was, 90 pages in or whatever. And I read about 30 pages more, and still, it was just my same thoughts as the first chapter. It was just really not doing anything for me. The whole book seemed to really be about nothing. And I guess Faulkner's style is called like stream of consciousness writing or something like that, which my guess would be it's like he just sits at the keyboard and just starts typing away, and the book doesn't really have any clear plot really. It's just the characters letting their mind run free. And I don't know, just something about the book was not working out for me. I was not enjoying it. So that is a book, even though I read 125 pages of it, it just wasn't for me. I could not say it's bad, really. It just wasn't for me. So I DNF'd that one after 125 pages. I will keep this around because I need to read As I Lay Dying, which is another Top 1000 book. And I also have up there Light in August, which is another William Faulkner book on the Top 1000 list. He has a few books on the Top 1000 list. There's also one called Absalom, I think. So there's like 4 or 5 William Faulkner books on the Top 1000 list. The Sound and the Fury was the first one I tried, and just not for me. So not rated. This one I reviewed in my March wrap-up, and for some reason I didn't get rid of it in my last Book Unhaul video, but it's Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. And so if you want to hear my thoughts on Gone with the Wind, it's in my March wrap-up. I'll link it in the description. So I'm not going to talk at all about my thoughts on that book. But basically I think I kept this one around because I guess in some small way I was hoping maybe I'll pick it up and finish it at some point. Because I got about a third of the way through and I really wanted to read this whole book. But I just knew if I tried to read any more of it, I would not like it. Just basically, I was done with the book. And so yeah, I just know I'm not going to read any more of it, and I just can't enjoy this book. And I still have not seen the movie, even though I bought it last Christmas, or the Christmas before even. I think it was last Christmas. But I know I'm not going to read any more of it, and it's a big book, so it's taking up a lot of space. So Gone with the Wind is going bye-bye. Next, I'm not getting rid of it because it's signed, unfortunately. Otherwise, I probably would gladly get rid of it. But it's Scott Westerfeld, Impostors. So I added this one to my currently reading list just like a week or two ago. And I read 22 pages of it, I think. And I could not take any more. It was just real short sentences, real short paragraphs, real short chapters, and I just did not like the book at all, just the way it's written. So I'm not sure what I'll do for the rating, because this is definitely a book I can plainly say I did not like. Not just it was not for me, this is a book I did not like. But at the same time, it just wasn't for me, so I don't know. The fact that it's signed I think is pretty cool, so I think that may kind of tip the scale for me just leaving it unrated. I don't know, but if this wasn't signed, I'd happily get rid of it. And even with it being signed, I'm still kind of thinking like, I don't really want this. I mean, I don't have any interest in reading any more from the author. So this is kind of a regret buy. And I like signed books too much to really get rid of it. But at some point, if I do want to get rid of signed books, this is probably going to be the first on the list. Next on the Unhaul is Dracula by Bram Stoker. And I just reviewed this one in my drunk book review video, which I will link in the description. And yeah, basically I didn't enjoy it too much. And there's no reason for me to keep it. Now, if it was signed, I would definitely keep it. Oh man, that'd be cool to have a signed copy. But anyway, so I just read it just because it's on the top 1,000 list, but also not just because of that. I wanted to read the book anyway, even if it wasn't on the top 1,000 list. But I just didn't enjoy it well enough and have no reason to keep it, so I'm getting rid of it. Next, another book that for some reason didn't make the last Book on the Haul video, even though it should have. The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. And the reason I say I should have gotten rid of this one is because it's a massive book. And I need the space on my bookshelf. Now, I don't know if I reviewed this one at all. But basically my thoughts on the Three Musketeers is that I had heard like this was supposed to be like the best action adventure story or whatever. I mean, it's like the quintessential action adventure story. But I thought it was just so utterly boring, like, ugh. Like part of the book, a big chunk of it is just about like having to retrieve a necklace, and all they do is just go to England or something and come back, and I don't know, just the whole book, I could not get into it at all. It wasn't an action adventure, it was just boring. And that has made me really reluctant to read The Count of Monte Cristo, which I actually got fairly recently, and it is on the top 1,000 list, The Count of Monte Cristo. And a lot of booktubers have raved about The Count of Monte Cristo. Having read The Three Musketeers, I am like, I highly doubt that. Are you talking about the same Alexandre Dumas? Because this one is boring. He's long-winded and boring. And that book, Count of Monte Cristo, looks even worse than this one because it's just words and words and words and words and words. It's a long book and, oh, it just looks boring. So, I don't know. A lot of booktubers do rave about it though, and it is on the top 1,000 list, so I will read it at some point, but having read this book, I'm just not excited to. But anyway, I have no reason to keep this book anymore, and I know I'm not going to read it again, so it's going away to make space. So, last on the Unhaul is Let Us Now Praise Famous Men by James Agee. And this is a book I've had for a couple years. It is off the top 1,000 books to read list, but I've just never really gone around to it until last night. I started it, I read about 15 pages, and I just got bored with it and went to sleep. And then this morning I read about 15 more pages, and I gave up on it for two reasons really. The first is I thought the book had over description. It was just describing everything about everything, like what the characters or people wear, you know, what their houses are like, what their yard is like, just description upon description. And I don't really like that in books because I think a lot of description is just unnecessary. So that to me was just all going in one ear and out the other. So after like 30 pages, I was still like, I have not taken any of this in. I just do not really understand what's going on. I don't know, just description, a lot of description in books just does not work for me, and that was the case with this one. But then the other thing that was really kind of the deal breaker is that Agee in this book uses the N-word a lot and just real casually. And it's also like his word for black people. And that's a problem in books. I can understand it if the N-word is being used like in context. For instance, in Mark Twain's books like Huckleberry Finn, he will use the N-word occasionally, but it's more the characters in the time in like the 1800s who are using it. But when Twain referred to black people, he would usually say either black people or Negroes. He wouldn't say the N-word to describe them. But that's what AG does. So he'll just say, you know, they sang an N-word song, or N-words came out of the house, or, you know, I looked at a N-word and whatever. And so that is his words, and this is written in like the mid 1930s. So to me, it's just kind of like, come on, you should have known better. I mean, why couldn't they have least have said Negro? Because, I mean, that was at least kind of the politically correct-ish word then. But he just most often uses the N-word. And what's even more about it is apparently this book was meant to be, I looked it up on Wikipedia, it was some kind of like project for some government department, I think, to like show the situation of like poor black Americans, to like bring attention to them or something. So I think this was actually really kind of like an official project in a way. And this was under President FDR. So that just more of it, why it just does not sit well with me. It's like, why couldn't you have just said Negro or just plainly black Americans or whatever? But he uses the N-word. So it's just like, I don't know, this is just not sitting well with me. So basically after like 50 or 60 pages of not getting into the book at all and also not liking that word, I'm just like, no, I'm going to pass on this one. So that's that. I will still probably just leave this one unrated and just say not for me, even though plainly I didn't like it. I don't know. I still cannot really say if this book is worth anything, really, because I just can't tell. So I'll just say it's not for me and moving on and getting rid of it. That is it for the Unhaul. Now I am currently reading 4 books, which I'll quickly run through for you. There's Carson McCullers' The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. I'm not quite halfway through with it yet. I'm actually kind of enjoying this one, so I'll have some things to say about this one, but that one? Last of the Mohicans by James Fenimore Cooper. Just about 20% of the way through that one. I've been reading this one for a few years now, and yeah, it's just... And then I'm also reading Clash of Kings by George R. R. Martin, and I'm at the halfway point of that one. So, yeah. And then the other book I started reading is When We Found Home by Susan Mallory. Now, all I'll say about this one so far is it seems like this is a trope that's so common. Basically, this millionaire or billionaire guy who is like the hottest guy ever meets this, you know, mid 20, late 20 something woman who is also like the most beautiful woman in the world, who is single for some unknown reason, and right away it's like he has seen something he's never seen before and he wants her, and so she is going to like open up his heart to love, and that's just such a tiresome trope to me. But anyway, despite that, I'm still not quite near DNFing it yet. I want to give it more of a chance. But yeah, just to let you know, that's what kind of book this is, and it is just so tiresome. But anyway, since I did not finish Let Us Now Praise Famous Men, since I like to be reading 5 books at a time, that means I could add another book to my currently reading list, and the way I'm going to be doing that is through Random Number Generator. So I have a list of books 1 through... how many do we got here? 84. Please don't be Angie Thomas on the come up. Please don't be Angie Thomas on the come up. Random Number Generator 1 through 84. Here we go. 2! Wow, 2! Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. So, you could actually see I have a bookmark here because I started to read this book ages ago, and apparently I got to page, where even is the page number? 54. And you see how big this book is, and look how small the font is. So, basically my thoughts on this were, oh, it was just exhausting. It was tiresome, it was wordy, and I was just not able to get into it, but I still wanted to read it because Ayn Rand is such a kind of popular figure. I know she's also very divisive, or whatever, if that's the right word. She's very controversial. She's a very controversial figure. But basically, I was not liking this book too much, but I did not want to get rid of it. So apparently the random number generator has decided that I will have to resume reading it. I'm not really excited about that, but on the plus side, if I do read more of it and decide to give up on it, at least it's a big book and I could get rid of it and make more space. So that's at least a positive. So Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, going back onto the currently reading list. Wish me luck. And so that is it. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll show you some clips of the birds to reward your patience. Thanks guys, bye. Hello. Hello. Ow. Ow! How come he got a bite? Ow! That could hurt for all you know. Anyway, thanks for watching you guys. Bye. Say goodbye, birds.